Greetings and welcome to the Dr. J Vlog series. It's Sunday, January 25th, 2026, and that means that our youngest turns 30 today. So happy birthday, Caleb, CX Violet. So we're doing our next episode in Thoughts and Reflections, and I promised last week that we'd be doing kind of a mini series or workshop on mental health, taking control of your mental health. So this is the second in the series. And last week I talked about the prime directive, that being the best place to start in terms of your mental health involves letting go of worry. I made the point that one of the main things that eats away at our body, at our health, both physically and mentally, is that we waste so much time and energy worrying about things and often creating in our minds the dramas that undermine our very own well-being. We're often our own worst enemies when it comes to creating undue stress and distress in our lives. Most of us cling to the old dramas and the traumas, and we're worrying about the things that have happened in the past or what might be happening right now, and oftentimes what we think might happen in the future. And so through all of that worrying, we're carrying such a heavy burden. And we've often convinced ourselves that we have to worry, though, because we care. And what I want to disabuse you of the notion is that caring should not be conflated with worrying. Okay, so caring means that we have a positive, action-oriented perspective that's rooted in the love that we have for ourselves, for others, for nature, for God, for the world in general, for the universe. Caring implies that willingness to take care, much like even when we simply say goodbye or we offer kind of a nice affirmative comment to someone, to those that were, after we're ending our time together, we say, take care. Take care of yourself. Take care. Worrying, on the other hand, tends to be fear-based and quite negative in terms of our emotional framing. I'm worried about the weather. I'm worried about you. I'm worried I'm not going to be able to pay the bills. I'm worried I'll screw up. I'm worried I'm not good enough, and so on. And in the extreme, we can become paralyzed with our worries or from fear and incapacitated and just unable to act. So in short, care more, worry less. It's the worrying that's weighing us down, not the caring. So in that regard, we have to lighten our load. We have to discard some of the unnecessary items that are weighing us down. Again, the worrying that's creating the distress in our lives and the stuff that's negatively affecting our mental health. So a focus on letting go was the very first step from last week. Letting go is obviously much easier said than done. And the best place to start, though, is to try to start to worry less, start to let go, and that involves the process then. This is the next step of quieting the mind. So how do we quiet the mind? Well, one approach popularly recognized these days and across cultures involves meditation. But that's not entirely necessary, at least meditation in a formal systemic sense. You don't have to meditate to start quieting the mind. More on that in a moment. It's true, though, that at the heart of most philosophies of meditation, there's a kind of an ironic catch, if you will, or twist that's involved. If you force yourself to try to stop thinking and to meditate, what happens? You start to think about the process of thinking. And so you're usually having some kind of an inner conversation and trying to convince yourself to stop thinking and to just meditate, to focus. It's like the proverbial challenge of somebody telling you to not think of the pink elephant. Don't think of a pink elephant. And then inevitably what happens, the pink elephant gets stuck in your mind. So the first rule of Fight Club applies here, right? Not the we don't talk about Fight Club, but rather the idea that you're not going to talk about or think about not thinking. So instead, you're going to try to ease into the process of not thinking and quieting your mind by taking some practical steps. So, and first, and a great place to start, commit to setting yourself down somewhere that's quiet and peaceful. Where can you go? In your own home, or perhaps somewhere outside in nature, sometimes even at work. The point is to find a quiet place so that you can literally just be alone. That can even be in your bed. You can't come up with anything else, but I'd actually like to recommend that you don't do this in bed. Find another place, okay? Even another place in your own room. Somewhere, though, where you can just sit quietly and comfortably and just not think about anything. Again, that's easier said than done. And don't worry, you actually might end up falling asleep. I don't want you to fall asleep in the process, but that might be the one of the outcomes, and that's fine. But the point here is that you need to carve out some space and some time where you can just be alone. Crucial thing is to truly commit to being alone with yourself. That means no computer, no cell phone. Turn it off or discard it. Get rid of it completely. Don't even put it on vibrate. No disruptions. Nothing to distract you. And then you might say something to yourself. Well, but I can't turn off my cell phone because there might be an emergency. Somebody might be needing to reach me. And if you're thinking that, saying that, well, that's part of the problem right there. You need to let go of the need or the desire or the preference to be reachable at all times. It's remarkable how nearly everyone these days can't leave the house, for example, without their cell phones, myself included. And yet the point is that you don't need to be there for everyone or on call 24/7. Yes, something bad could happen, obviously, but you can't worry about that. You need to be able and willing to set aside time for yourself every day. Okay? So that's the first step. And if that sounds selfish to you, okay, that's fine. In time, though, you'll realize it's not being selfish to carve out time just for yourself. Instead, it's like that classic situation. What did they instruct you on the airplane? To make sure you put, if the oxygen masks come out, that you have to put it on yourself first before trying to assist others, okay? And that's exactly what you need to do, right? You can't help your children or help others who aren't able to put on the oxygen mask unless you've got yours on first and you're breathing comfortably. And then you can calmly assist others. So I hope you see the point there. So in the long run, and to be the type of caring and loving and engaged and healthy person that you might like to be in this lifetime, you really do have to start first by looking after yourself. Putting on your own metaphorical oxygen mask so that you can breathe comfortably. Okay? And again, this is not in an egocentric way or because you're so important and nobody else matters. No, quite the opposite. Everybody does matter. The world does matter. And that's why you're putting on the oxygen mask. Okay? It's not because you're being egocentric. And it's not that you're uncaring or dismissive. Not at all. So I, for example, take care of myself by having something to eat, drink, hopefully getting a shower, and if I can in the mornings, getting cleaned up, and by spending a little bit of time in thought before I go to work. And you say, well, that sounds very selfish. At one level, it is in the sense of tending to just the self. But I do that precisely and take care of, the basic necessities. Not because I'm, quote unquote, being selfish and feeding my ego, but now I can then do the right things in terms of looking after my responsibilities, in looking after others, in doing a better job at work in terms of teaching, or just being more engaged and more available to the people that I meet. Okay? And so what I want to do then is just return now to this idea of you setting aside your own quiet time. And so to do this properly, as I mentioned, you literally have to eliminate all forms of contact and phones and social media and so on. Don't be afraid to be alone and learn to relax and enjoy just being alone. Now, normally we say, yes, so I can just be alone with my thoughts. But no, not even that. You have to strive to be truly alone. And that means being freed from the burden of your thoughts. You need to get away from that incessant voice in your head, or in some cases, the many different competing voices that are constantly chattering away. And we talk about people being seriously ill, mentally ill, or that sort of thing, because they have these voices in their heads haunting them. But guess what? We all have voices in our heads, right? We all have the potential to be haunted by the voices in our heads, even if we're pretty convinced that it's just us who's speaking to ourselves, just that one person, that one self who's the source of these thoughts. But in the extreme, though, we, our own selves, can do what? We can drive ourselves crazy. I know I've done that on more occasions than I care to admit. And so that's why, again, we need this quiet place to be alone and to quiet the mind and the voice or the voices that are in our heads, and then relieve ourselves from that constant burden of thinking. It's like Steve Forbert, the singer-songwriter, Steve Forbert. Really, I saw him once back about 35 years ago in concert, but he once sang this song titled Thinkin, aptly titled, right? And what does he sing? Oh, the opening lines of the song. Well, don't you go thinking and thinking and thinking so much till you're stranded behind. Don't you go thinking and thinking and thinking so much till you're losing your mind. So I'll leave a link to his song "Thinkin" in the description below. And indeed, the generic problem I think that underlies so much of our modern crisis of mental health is that we think too much, or we lie awake at night unable to shut off our minds, and especially the imagined stuff that we're worrying about, stuff that's keeping us awake, that's keeping us from getting that good night's sleep. And then what happens? We compound the problem, right? Our mental and our physical health both will deteriorate if we don't get the proper sleep. And so everything sort of goes downhill quickly from there. The philosopher and the spiritual guru, I strongly recommend, Eckhart Tolle, talks and writes a lot about the pain and suffering that we induce in ourselves through the unnecessary, negative, and often destructive mental activities in which we engage. And so instead, we need to disengage our minds. We need to remove the noise and mute the sound of the inner voice that's constantly talking. We need to, in that sense, clear the clutter from our minds. And if you can do that, by the way, then you're ahead of most people. Not that it's a competition, but the point is that most of us are trapped into thinking constantly. And in fact, it's even worse because not only are we thinking constantly, we're often thinking the exact same thoughts, rendering the same judgments, and we're often ending up in the same places. In other words, we often become sort of trapped in our own mental prison, surrounded by these thoughts that are constantly intruding upon us and disrupting our peace and quiet. And so how do we get back the quiet? How do we quiet the mind? Well, and this is the critical point, by recognizing that we are not our thoughts. I'm certainly not the first to say this. Many others have mentioned or talked about this idea. So by becoming aware of that fact, and then by observing our thoughts, noticing that our thoughts are, if you will, I love this analogy that I've heard from others, that our thoughts are like clouds in the sky, right? They come and go, and some are beautiful and intricate or fluffy and bright. Some are scary and disturbing in their configuration, but the point is that they're just thoughts. They're just clouds in the sky, and they'll pass, just like the clouds pass through the sky as well. But what's always there behind the passing clouds, too? This is something we often forget. And especially we'll forget it if we look up and we see nothing but total cloud cover, right? But what's behind there? The sun. It's there. It's always there. The sun and the light and the warmth and the energy. They're always there, but perhaps just temporarily hidden. And often hidden behind the cloud cover of that never-ending parade of thoughts. And so the key then again is that you are not your thoughts. You're the observer, or you need to learn to become the observer. And you can start just by recognizing the thoughts, maybe even categorizing them. Oh, there's that thought again where I worry about my money and finances, right? Or there's the one that reminds me that I'm not very good at this or that, right? Or there's the one that's telling me that life is unfair. Maybe it's the thought that the world's a dangerous place, or conversely, maybe a beautiful place, or a crazy place, whatever. Okay? So obviously, I don't know what your thought patterns are, but I can often see the patterns. They'll emerge, if you will, through what you say and what you do. And so that's the first key then in terms of letting go. Acknowledge the thoughts that you're having, that arrive. Be aware of the chatter and identify the thoughts that are clamoring for your attention, especially your ego's attention. And then, in particular, what are those thoughts that are making life a little bit more difficult for yourself? So these are the thoughts that you need to prioritize in terms of letting go. And this, of course, requires some degree of self-awareness. And I find that that's something that's often sorely lacking in our world today. So we need to strive to become more self-aware. And more specifically, try to identify and let go of the thoughts that are creating difficulties and trauma in your life. The stuff that's creating all the worrying, that's compromising your ability to let your light shine through, right? It's not going to happen all at once, not immediately, not usually, but maybe you're the exception. Instead, just start by trying to recognize this continual stream or even flood of thoughts that are just passing through the mind. Be aware of the constant mental commentary, and don't just give in to the thoughts and let them take hold, and especially in ways that cloud your judgment. There's that analogy again. Those that block the light of your sun, that proverbially compel you to rain on everyone else's parades or drown your very own spirit with negativity. So ultimately, again, the first step involves letting go of worry, letting go of thoughts that are creating the worry, and trying to empty the mind. Try to relieve yourself of the burden of carrying so much mental baggage, especially the weight of negative or destructive thoughts. And remember, it's kind of like your teeth, too. If you haven't taken care of them, what happens? The repeated exposure leads to a buildup of plaque that you don't even notice. You say, I'm fine. But you're not, because the plaque's there. Just like, again, the negative thoughts are there. And all of that's eating away at you, and you don't even necessarily see it. But it's corrosive, causing decay, and ultimately causing pain and suffering. And sure, you can go to the dentist and you can get the fillings and the root canals and so on, but why not start or try to preempt that by taking care of your teeth? And of course, this is a metaphor, taking care of your mind on a daily basis. You get the analogy, right? And that's where we'll start in our next section. We're going to talk about the practical steps then to start to clean and declutter your mind. But again, the first step involves just like brushing your teeth twice a day. So between now and next time, can you commit to setting aside some time in the morning and some time in the evening just to be alone and to start to try to quiet the mind, not allow these distractions, and to start letting go? Maybe just 5 minutes. Do it in the morning, do it in the evening, and I guarantee you'll see a difference immediately. So until next time, may you and yours continue to create peace in your lives, nurture love in your hearts, and dole out hugs in abundance. And please take 5 minutes in the morning and in the evening and start trying to quiet the mind. And we'll follow up with this next week. Take care.